Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our HGI Virtual Open House. It's a pleasure to welcome you here this evening. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your schedule to be with us. Tonight, we have a special program prepared for you in a more intimate setting. We have our president, Dr. Thomas Walsh, with us, but we also have two special guests among our student body, current students, which I think you will be eager to hear their experience so far at the graduate school. We're also pleased tonight to have with us our Associate Dean of Student Life, Mika Desitel, who will also say a few words. So we will have an opportunity during the program to answer your questions, but you're welcome to place any questions that you might have in the chat box during the program, and we'll deal with them in our Q&A. So let me begin now by, again, thanking you for coming and introducing our president, Dr. Thomas G. Walsh. Dr. Walsh is the seventh president of HGA International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership. He is a 1979 graduate of HGI. After his studies here at HGI, he went on to earn his PhD at Vanderbilt University, where he specialized in the study of religion and ethics at the School of Religion. Since his graduation from HGI, he has taught at several colleges, universities, as well as HGI. In fact, last semester, he co-taught a course with Reverend Damian Dunkley, which was entitled Unification Studies Seminar, Ministry and Public Leadership in America. We're very pleased also that this fall, he's given his time to offer another course. This time it will be entitled World Religion and Encounter with Christianity. As you know, Dr. Walsh has worked very closely with our co-founders of HCI, Reverend Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, in the establishment and in the leadership of the Universal Peace Federation, where until very recently he served as international chair. Dr. Walsh, you may not know, is an editor. He's edited more than 20 books and publications for the Universal Peace Federation, and he continues to serve as executive editor of Dialogue and Alliance, an academic journal indexed by the American Theological Library Association. So it's really been a pleasure to have Dr. Walsh here as president. We've benefited so much from his leadership. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Walsh.
Well, thank you very much, Dean Stephen Boyd. It's a great pleasure to be at another open house that we do periodically leading up particularly to the beginning of a new academic year, 24-25, and the fall semester. So thank you who have joined us this evening. We're grateful that you're here and grateful that you're giving some thought to the possibility of applying, enrolling in a program, or simply taking a course. Since I have come to HJI based on our founders' direction, I served many years working internationally with Universal Peace Federation, which was a job that I truly loved and committed myself to. But a few years ago, True Mother asked me to become engaged with HJI, then UTS, and be part of the effort to kind of build a wider range of programs. And that's why we, with her advice, changed the name to the HJ, which stands for Hyojang Graduate School. So it moves from seminary to graduate school, we can say, which was not an uncommon transition for institutions of higher education, of building upon often a spiritual foundation, broadening out and expanding to in a way, the application of spirituality, not only to the very important religious disciplines, but to a wider range of disciplines. And that's why we are developing and have developed our master's in peace studies as evidence of that transition. And we have this name, HJ International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership. And we As you know, within our movement, whether it's Family Federation or UPF or Women's Fed or Youth and Students for Peace, peace is a central concept. It is a kind of a pillar of our understanding. And it's not a narrow view of peace as working to end violence, but it applies to every part of the life cycle and the widespread of society, our individual lives in the search for peace, shalom, salam, that all religions uphold, but how do we have peace in the individual, family, society, nation, world, and in our various ministries. And we also define ministry very broad. It can be church ministry and aimed at church growth and development. But as you know, we have ministries that can work with non-governmental organizations, with the United Nations, can work in the business sector, can work in the area of arts and culture, along with being more of an academic or a thought leader in the world. We have a great faculty. We're proud of our faculty. Dr. Andrew Wilson, Dr. Michael Mickler, Dr. Thomas Ward, Dr. Drisa Kone, Dr. Kaisuke Noda, and many others who serve in various capacities as adjunct faculty at the school. So if, as we hope you will, you enroll in a course, you'll get the best, most inspiring lectures in areas such as studying scripture or religious history, world religions, as Dean Boyd said, or Christian history. What was it like in the early days of Christianity or during the Reformation or in the more modern era where Christianity faces many challenges as it interfaces with a secular world? Dr. Ward has nearly 30 years of experience in peace studies from his time as the head of the Department of International Relations and Political Economy at the University of Bridgeport, along with his colleague William Lay, who's an attorney graduated from Columbia University, who's one of our key faculty on issues such as human rights and international law and constitutional theory. I don't want to talk too long. We don't have a lot of time, but I always try to say that please don't think, oh, I don't have enough background, or maybe I'm not quite, my brain's not as good as it ought to be to do this kind of work. I think you'll find that you have just what it takes. You will be inspired, you will be energized, and new vistas, new horizons will open up, and you'll say to yourself, well, I wish I'd kind of started to engage in this kind of content. I didn't have the time, or I studied economics in college, but now I'd really like to dive into this area that complements my life of faith and allows me to interact with, dialogue with others from other faiths, particularly here in America with Christians, and being able to dialogue on a firm foundation of not only deep love for God and love for Jesus and faithfulness, but kind of an intellectual strength that's very important to understanding theology, church history, and New Testament and Hebrew Bible. So please take it seriously. More than listening to me, I could go on, and I'll stop there. But I'd like to invite a couple of we have many wonderful students, but we have two very special and some of our really Hall of Fame students with us tonight who've given up their evening in order to share a little bit with you. So Dean Boyd, if we could bring on Sancha and Mark, and I want to kind of just go through a couple of questions with each of them, maybe taking 7 or 8 minutes with each, and then we'll kind of open it up also to our audience. And I'll start with you, Sancha, if I may. I know you have a young new member of your family. Maybe you'll say a word about that, but and you can't always be on your own schedule. I think so. I'm going to grab you while I can and ask you first, Sandra, to just take a few minutes just to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Walsh. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Sancha Christian, and I'm currently the HR manager at HSAUWC, but my background really is I've had 7 years of experience with Marriott hotels. It's not what I went to school for, so I didn't go to school for hospitality, but it's kind of where I ended up. I went to school for like leadership management and actually minored in data analytics. So it's very different. But from that, I went into the finance industry. I spent 2 or 3 years in finance and finally kind of made it back around to coming to HJI for the Master's of Arts in Peace Studies. So that's what I'm education-wise, that's what I'm doing. But I'm also a new mom, so that's also very important and probably has taken over most of my life at this point.
What kind of led you? Did you suddenly decide, well, let me try a course, or you kind of intentionally thought I'd really like to study?
That's a great question. So it was interesting how it happened. In the moment that it was introduced to me, someone, a good friend of mine, asked if I'd be interested in this, in the Peace Studies program. I had felt like a calling to pursue higher education again. There was like a desire to return to the classroom or kind of return to like-minded individuals. I originally wasn't looking into this area at all. Again, because it wasn't my background, and I had this perception that I had to be like a pastor or maybe a youth pastor or someone in religious studies to even, have access to this. But in just realizing, I think I just realized that conflict is everywhere. It's not just in religion, it's like in every aspect of life. And there's definitely conflict in corporate America, and we're in the corporate world. And then I spent 7 or 8 years there. So I could see that peace studies for the individual was needed, because it applies to all aspects of life. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I feel that so strongly too, that when I look at the world, I don't know about others, but I just feel, this world really needs God. It needs not just, to believe in God, but some kind of direction. And I think we really have a lot to offer, but I think we need more than our courage and commitment, but also the more we build our capacities and strength as you're doing, I think we can even be more effective. Sancha, tell us a couple of things about your experience at HJI that have been important to you, whether it's a course or a professor or friends you've made.
Yes. So a couple classes definitely come to mind. The two that probably were most impactful so far was the conflict analysis and transformation. So specifically looking at methods of, how to handle conflict, and the different processes that are possible to use. So it was like helpful for myself, especially as an HR manager.
Yes.
Noticing how I could, alter the way I talk to someone, or even alter the words that I'm saying, noticing how they make an impact. So just these small things already started to play a role in how I was, functioning at work. I guess the second class, though, ironically, is the World Scriptures and World Peace with Dr. Wilson. That really challenged me, actually. It was a very challenging course, because, Dr. Wilson obviously knows so much. And I think he talks to you like you should know it. So some of the lectures, I was like, what is he talking about? Which I have no idea. like he like speaks to you is like trusting that you know the content, and I'm like, I don't know this content, Dr. Wilson. But so it was probably the most like conflicting, realizing I don't know so much about world religions actually and world scriptures. So that was eye-opening, and I could see that, yeah, it's like a opportunity to expand my own viewpoint. That was like a huge aspect that I saw in his
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned AR. So there's HR. There's this applicability to wherever you're kind of carrying out your ministry. And I believe you have a ministry, and whether you go back into the financial area or hospitality management with the Marriott Corporation, or stay in HR, or move on. We understand these in a kind of a theocentric way, a God-centered way, and how can I help here? So I'm happy that you saw even peace studies. I see these ads for how to deal with complicated or very difficult people in the workplace. So peace studies applies there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Sancha. We're so grateful that you're part of HJI, and you add a lot. Just quickly, how about some of your fellow students? Is the interaction with your students? Some of your classes I know are online, but are you able to connect well with other students?
Yes. So I probably the biggest way, I mean, the way we connect the most is through discussion boards. And I like that was one of the things that I wanted to mention was the aspect of discussion boards, because it allows you to discuss a multitude of things with international students, but also students from different faiths. So we had the opportunity to hear just how and the discussion boards just go for like a long time, actually, because everyone just keeps coming back and returning to them and adding different things. So that's like one area that I really enjoy, and I get to read different perspectives. So that's helpful.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Sancha. I'm going to move on now to Mark Lincoln, who I told him when he showed up tonight that he looked, like he belonged on the movie set. He's handsome and well dressed. I think he said his wife bought him his suit for graduation. But Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself before I try to tell everybody about you.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with Sancha tonight. Yeah, I'm an old timer, right? I'm 69 years old. I just graduated from HJI, and I retired about 2 years ago from 26 and a half years working for the same company here in Omaha, where I was born and raised. And
did you work for Berkshire Hathaway?
Interesting you mentioned that, because on the way to church, we pass Warren Buffett's house every day on the way to church when we go for a morning prayer meeting at the Chuncheon. We drive right by his house.
Small world.
But we live here in Omaha. My daughter and son-in-law live here in Omaha as well, with our 3 beautiful grandchildren, and we're just really happy to be in my hometown.
Wonderful. Well, what on your journey as a someone who'd worked professionally for many years, and then a later in life decision. And I should add that we have so many wonderful students that even not only our younger students like Sancha, but also many who even I'm older than Mark Lincoln, but students my age who rave about the opportunities they're having now in life to study these things that somehow life course didn't permit earlier on. So what drew you, Mark?
Well, I joined in the Oakland Church in 1979, and shortly after I joined, I realized that Father really encouraged all members who had college degrees to attend, which was at that time the seminary. And so I thought, wow, I'd love to do that. But one thing led to another, and different missions, starting my family life, moving back to Omaha, raising our daughter. And then, but it was always a dream that I had. And when I finally retired, God bless my wife, the first thing she said on the day I retired, you should apply to the seminary.
Oh,
Never forgot it. She never
good.
forgot my desire of my heart. I had about 10 years previous, I had taken two courses, both of Dr. Michael Mickler's Church History 1 and Church History 2. History has always been a love of mine. And so I thought, well, at least I can take those courses because they were offered online. You know, those were kind of the early days of the online courses. And
Yes.
so I was able to have a really good experience online with those two courses. And Dr. Mickler, he pushes you, you know, he doesn't give you a pass just because you're online. I remember he challenged me a lot with my responses to some of the films that we would watch and give responses to.
Yeah. Wonderful. We're so delighted that you're part of the HJI family. What would you say to, we have some prospective students out there tonight. What would be your word of advice or encouragement?
I would say, don't come here unless you don't want to have your mind blown and your experience broadened and your life deepened, because all of those things happened to me here at HJI.
Yeah.
And one professor has already been mentioned that was a part of that, Dr. Andrew Wilson.
Huh?
By far and away, the most exciting class I took here was his class on what was the actual divine principle in depth.
Yes.
Divine principle in depth. It was incredible, not for two reasons. One, it was not only fascinating and really made you think about the divine principle more deeply, but the format was wonderful. And I'm an old timer. I didn't grow up with the, when I went to college, we didn't have computers. This was the first time I took any kind of college level courses with computers.
Yep.
And the setup was fabulous. We would watch an online pre-recorded lecture by Dr. Wilson. Then he would have us respond in a chat room, like Sancha mentioned, with our fellow classmates. And then we would have a meeting, an online meeting with him where it was open for discussion. And my goodness, I looked forward to every single pre-recorded lecture and every single discussion that we had, because it just took me to places I've never been before.
Oh, beautiful. Do we have this recorded, Dean Boyd? We got to use these sound
We
bites.
do, absolutely.
Thank you, Mark. That's beautiful. Yeah, I like, this person I spoke to on a couple of people at church on Sunday at Belvedere, who are, and they're my colleagues or peers in the age group. And one thing, just not to be intimidated, because I think you'll find those brain cells start to perk up, and you'll be inspired to dig in and read more. And you have the experience that Sancha mentioned, is not a time to say, oh, I'm not good enough. It's time to say, oh, I'm going to dig deeper and learn more and build on that, because this will enrich my life, make me a better person, and allow me to do better in my wider ministry. So, Dean Boyd, I'm going to kind of wrap this segment up and invite you back, and I think we're going to hear also, you mentioned from our Associate Dean of Student Life. But Dean Boyd, let me hand it back to you at this stage.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Walsh. At this point, actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this in gallery mode. And if anybody has a question, I've been talking to some folks in the chat room during the testimonials by our students, but and answering some questions there. But if anybody has a question right now, you're welcome to raise your hand and answer, to ask your question. We'll do our best to answer it. If not, we'll go on to the next segment. I did put my information in the chat box, along with some links that might be of interest to you to look at our programs of study and the application link. Very often after the open house, people will apply. So I'll follow up with you afterwards. And if you just had a question of any kind, just feel free to email me and I'll be happy to help as much as I can. So Dr. Walsh, I don't see any questions right now. So what I'll do is I will share my screen and I'll talk a little bit about our programs of study.
Great, wonderful.
If a question occurs to you, you're welcome to put it in the chat box. And if we don't have time to get to it before we close tonight, I'll be following up with you afterwards. So
you want to put it in slideshow?
There we go.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Okay, so I'll just say a few things, and then I'll ask our Associate Dean of Student Life, Mika Destel, to offer some comments also. I guess the first thing I would say is as a foundation for everything that we're doing here, the HJ International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership, originally Unification Theological Seminary, was founded by Reverend and Mrs. Moon in 1975. And I always like to share this quote that was given by our True Father at the inaugural address in September 20th of that same year. He says, the seminary is not a place or a building. It is these people who are equipped with the spirit and ideal given by God. Armed upon graduation with the capacity for creative leadership, these students, I am sure, will be able to usher in a new world of higher dimension after removing society's social vices. So in this instance, and in subsequent speeches, Father spoke about the fact that the seminary was founded to equip, educate, and prepare current and future leaders of our movement within our own church community, but also to dialogue with society at large. And if you look at some of the graduates of HI over the almost 50 years now, you will see credible achievements by our graduates. Let me mention that HCI is fully accredited. It is the programs that we have to offer, which I'll talk about in a moment, are registered with the New York State Department of Education. And we are accredited by the Middle States Commission of Higher Education, which is one of, I believe, 13 or 14 regional accrediting bodies in America. For those of you who are not from the U.S., the highest accreditation in the United States is not a national accreditation. We don't have such a thing by the U.S. government. Instead, these are private, peer-to-peer accrediting bodies of the highest caliber. So the fact that we're accredited by Middle States means that we're accredited by the same body that would accredit Cornell or Princeton or University of Pennsylvania, other very high-level institutions. So we have a very high standing, and our degrees are recognized across the United States and around the world because of that accreditation. We also are members of the Theta Alpha Kappa Religious Studies National Honor Society, and this is for the highest achieving students at the graduate school in the area of religious studies. We are soon to enter another National Honor Society, which kind of under its purview is the area of peace studies. These are our programs of study. We have a certificate of unification leadership, a Master of Arts in Religious Studies, as Mark explained, a Master of Peace Studies, as Sancha was referring to. We also have a Master of Divinity and a doctoral program, a Doctor of Ministry, which is the highest credential of its kind in the field of ministry. So just briefly, each of these programs of study, the certificate in leadership is less than a master's degree. It is a 18 credit program of study, which can be used towards your master's degree eventually. And the area of studies are divided up between unification studies, theological studies, and ministry. The Master of Religious Studies, Master of Arts and Religious Studies is a 42 credit. It is fully online. Gone are the days where you have to move to New York area to study here at our school. You can do it from the comfort of your home with two different formats, which we can talk about later, and as Sancha and Mark alluded to. Our core courses cover some of the courses they spoke about: Old and New Testament, church history, divine principle, systematic theology, and others. And we have concentrations for those who choose to select them in public and nonprofit leadership, interfaith peace building, unification studies, theological studies, and there's also a Korean language track. Our Master of Arts in Peace Studies, you can see on the left there the core courses we offer: Peace and Complex Studies, World Scripture, World Peace, that Sancha was referring to, Unification Approaches to Peace, Diplomacy and Faith-Based Diplomacy, Conflict Analysis and Transformation, and others. And you can see also elective courses that are available within this 42 credit program. Again, fully online. You can do it from the comfort of your home. The delivery of content through HCI is excellent. I've worked in higher education for over 20 years at other institutions on the university level, and I can honestly say that the quality of content delivery by HCI is among the very best. The Master of Divinity is really historically, traditionally, the gold star degree program for individuals seeking to be ordained in their faith community. Originally, it was an 80 credit program. We've had it reduced now to 72 credits, and it has two areas of study: a theological curriculum and a ministry curriculum. It prepares you fully for the ministry on every level. And for many years, this was a terminal degree. In more recent times, the Doctor of Ministry, relatively recent times, the Doctor of Ministry was added. The Doctor of Ministry is a 28 credit program with 6 credits of your dissertation project work. We have been, since COVID, we've been holding these courses online. We will be going back to the seminar format in this next academic year. But the areas of focus are spiritual formation, integration, theological and ethical perspectives of leadership, transformational leadership, and others. There is a dissertation project where you do your research, really that is focused upon your particular kind of ministry. So I think there are two things that have been alluded to. One has clearly been alluded to by our current students. One is cost, the other is time. The first one is, do I have enough time? Can I do this? Let me just say that HCI students are not unlike graduate students in America around the world. Most graduate students across the board in the US are mid-career professionals. They will often have full-time jobs. They have family responsibilities, and they're doing their studies part-time. Only in today's market, students who go immediately out of undergraduate school into graduate school will tend to become full-time students. And the demands of the job market now require that actually students go into the job market after their undergraduate studies are completed, and they use their master's degree studies for a promotion or for a different kind of job that they're seeking to further their career. So can you do it? Yes, you can, because students across America are doing it. You do need to manage your time, and that is a challenge in the beginning, but I think that our students like Mark and Sancha can advise you on how best you can do that. And you can be very successful. The second challenge is always cost. So what I've got here on this slide are costs of some theological seminaries in the New York City area. These are very recent costs. General's actually is 2 years old. They haven't posted an update on their cost per credit hour. But as you can see, Union Theological is over $1,000 per credit hour. New York Theological Seminary, almost $700 per credit hour. And General Theological, $642. At least it was 2 years ago. HJ International is at $585. We had a small increase in our tuition after about 6 years. We were doing our very best to hold it down, but with changes in cost of living and whatnot, we decided to adjust it this year. But again, very competitive. But more importantly, for all of our students, and particularly for those who are members of the unification community, we have very generous scholarships. Often you'll receive a minimum of 50% discount for your scholarship. And for our next generation, current and future leaders, that scholarship can be up to 70%. So it is very affordable. We do have payment plans that are available on a monthly basis for you to pay any outstanding balance that you would owe for the course you take in a particular semester. We will work with you to help you make that happen. In terms of the coming semester in the fall, just to highlight a few courses that may be of interest for those of you who are not sure if you want to enter a degree program, would like just to take a class to start. We have a Korean language class given by Miss Christina Miyake, who is fluent in Korean, Japanese, and English. Excellent instructor. We've had very good reviews about her ability to transmit the content in a way. Some students who have done some prior Korean studies have given in the reflections that she's been able to bring it alive for them and answer their questions to facilitate the understanding of the Korean language. So I highly recommend this class if that's something you're interested in. We mentioned already Dr. Mickler's History of Christianity 2. Wonderful class, absolutely wonderful class. So this will be available in fall of 24. In addition, Dr. Wilson this coming semester will be teaching a course in Hebrew Bible, which is the teaching of the Old Testament. I've taken this class, fascinating class, and as are all of Dr. Wilson's courses. And I did mention, also we have Dr. Ward's upcoming class this fall, Unification Worldview. Dr. Ward his classes are full of exciting content, very relevant to the work that we're doing always in the unification community, but also to help us understand how to address issues in society at large. And then finally, I mentioned in my introduction to Dr. Walsh, his course this fall, World Religion and Encounter with Christianity. Again, every day, I haven't taken a course with Dr. Walsh, but I feel like I do almost every event like this, because particularly at our faculty roundtables, he's a wealth of knowledge, and I would be eager myself to be in one of his classes. So these are just some upcoming courses for the fall that you may be interested in. You can apply to a degree program, but you're also welcome to apply as a non-degree student and just take one class, see how it goes. I mean, that's what I did. I'll give my testimony in a minute. But before that, let me invite up our Associate Dean of Student Life, Ms. Mika Disatel, who's going to offer some comments from her point of view.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for, just taking the time out of your busy schedule to participate in this open house. And even for those of you who are going to catch the recording, I really hope that you can sincerely consider everything that's been shared. There's a lot that's been shared, and I'm kind of echoing what's been shared as well. But I'm grateful to be able to share from the perspective as both somebody who is working with HJI as the Associate Dean of Student Life, and also somebody who just completed my coursework in the Doctor of Ministry program, and I'm beginning the dissertation phase for my dissertation project. It's really been a joy to be able to work together with HJI, and also to be able to tune in from wherever we are. It's something that it's like become very commonplace to be able to do things online. But actually, it makes it so much easier, especially for somebody like myself who has young children and, can't necessarily make the commute all the time to the city. A few things come to mind when I think about HJI. One is that it's a very dynamic place. as Dr. Walsh was saying, it really doesn't matter, if you haven't been, in higher education or studying or gone to school in many, many years. One of the most fascinating things about a place like this is just being able to come together and feel an incredible amount of energy, especially focused on constant improvement. So it's a dynamic place to share new thoughts and ideas, to engage in, powerful programming. We're constantly trying to create more and more of a supportive community for empowerment and enrichment. Also, when I think about HJI, I think about relevant conversations, conversations for today's major issues related to peace on various levels, as was mentioned, and also as well, conversations related to our unificationist community and kind of like, where are we going? What is sustainable for our movement? As a young person, a second generation member who grew up in this movement, and, I'm thinking a lot about, what our movement is going to look like in the future, especially as my children grow up. It's very hopeful, actually, to be able to have conversations where I feel that we can really make an impact and an important difference in this home of thought, which is HJI. And finally, I just wanted to mention, when I think of HJI, it is a place to hone your calling and your vocation, deepening your own relationship with God, and further refining your particular gifts and strengths to serve the world. So I, had the opportunity to be in full-time ministry in the movement. And then right when I concluded that, I jumped into the Doctor of Ministry program. And at that time in my life, I really felt like, this was like where I was receiving the most spiritual nourishment. This was where I needed to be. And I remember mentioning this to Dr. Mickler, and he told me, this is exactly what HJI should be. And it's just fascinating. I realized that, in my particular journey, in my faith journey, I do feel that HJI is an important part of that journey and helping me to be able to gain, the skills and, as I mentioned, refine my gifts to be able to offer as a contribution to the worldwide movement and the world at large. And I, as I meet students, I was mentioning this to Angelica earlier today, it's like everybody has their story and everybody has felt a personal calling to come here to HJI, and I believe that that's probably why many of you have joined this call, or you feel very passionate already about HJI and you're joining the call because maybe you want to inspire your friends or other colleagues. And so, I just want to encourage you to dig deep into that feeling and recognize that, there is a place for you, and Heavenly Parent has laid it out for us through HJI. So I'm just going to put that out there. Back to you, Dean Boyd.
Thank you so much, Mika. It's a pleasure to have you with us at HJI. And Mika's doing a lot of good work with our Graduate Student Council, which was kind of reinstated after COVID, the lull that we were forced to take with the COVID lockdown. And now, as she's explaining, has been a student here for a while and doing very well. So thank you very much, Mika. And so I also want to thank Mark again, and also Sancha, who had to drop off. She does have a little baby who she was calling. She messaged me to say that somebody was calling her, that she to please be excused from the remainder of the program. But thank you, Sancha, for coming. So I just like to finish with a couple short comments before we close. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer after the program is completed. So, Mika shared her point of view, as have Mark and Sancha. I'd just like to share in a couple of minutes what's been my experience. I came to HJI to work here as a part of the staff about 4 years ago, and I had been working at other schools in similar capacities. I completed my MBA in 2006, which I did, like many, as it was a requirement for the advancement of my career. And I had no plan, no plan at all to take any classes anywhere. However, when I was hired, I was under reporting to Dr. Ward, who suggested that I take a course. And so I did, you know. And honestly, the experience was unexpected. So I say this because you may not be sure right now if you want to take a class. You may be thinking about it, or maybe you're thinking, no, it's not for me. What I would ask you to do is give it a chance. And as Mika explained, many of us, not just within our own community, but in higher ed in general, you feel called to a path, and you feel something in your heart that's letting you know that maybe I should take this step. At least, so I felt God was guiding me when Dr. Ward asked me to take a class. I took a class. It was Dr. Mikla's Church History 1, amazing class. And I decided, well, I'll take another course. And with each successive course, I became more and more interested. I became less intimidated, having been out of the classroom for a while. I was able to manage my time with a full-time job, and of course, with family responsibilities and other activities in my life, like everyone's life. That led to another course, and before I knew it, I had completed the Certificate in Unification Leadership. So now I'm the proud recipient of the Certificate in Unification Leadership. And all those courses, combined with my master's degree, has served as a foundation for me now to enter the Doctor of Ministry program. I'm behind Mika, but I've been in class with her, and I go to her sometimes for advice about, what the next stage of the DMIN process is going to be. But I'm fully engaged, and I'm so glad that I took that step. So I would suggest, if you're not sure, take 1 or 2 classes. See how it goes. I know you'll be surprised. And I put a question on this slide. What will you discover? What I'm putting here is what I found, and I think others have found. First of all, a very engaging classroom with topics, as Mika was explaining, that are very relevant to our path of faith, our ministry, even our careers. The students are of the highest quality. We have first generation, second generation students, and members of faiths which are not unification faiths, other Christian denominations, or non-Christian backgrounds, Muslim or Jewish or Hindu, even in our classes. And so there's a very beautiful dynamic that takes place in a very respectful atmosphere where you learn a lot. If one of the purposes of the graduate school from its inception is to dialogue with other Christian faith members and also other faith traditions, this is a giving good experience right from the get-go. Also, our faculty members are also from various faiths. So, speaking of our faculty, they're highly qualified. I would say some eminently qualified in their fields. Again, I've been at other schools, and I can honestly tell you that they're extremely competent in their ability to deliver the content. So that's been my experience. I think I realized, I can do this. I got excited. I've continued to do it. You have to be able to manage your time, but you can accomplish this. So just to sum up, I think that based on what we've talked about tonight, we can affirm that HJI is affordable. That's any cost is a strain on our budgets, but it is affordable, particularly in comparison to other schools in the same category, and also with the financing options and scholarship opportunities that we have. It is very doable. All of us that are on the call here speaking to you tonight are testimony of that. And it's really enjoyable. It really is like stimulating, you know. You get to meet, I got to meet Mark Lincoln. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a new addition in my life, you know. Mark is very modest, but what a great brother, you know, a fellow student, and did such a good job in his studies. And then truly valuable. This is a truly valuable experience, more than we realized before we began. Just like all things in life, you don't know what you don't know. And when you begin to figure, oh my goodness, you know, I see Dr. Hendricks on the call tonight. Oh my goodness, a wealth of knowledge. And I think about all the things that Dr. Hendricks has discovered over his career, you know, his academic career and leadership in our movement. One thing leads to another. Now I understand so much more why true parents established the seminary and why we need this degree. We need this to be able to stand as peers, as colleagues, you say, to other faith leaders outside of our movement. Right away, they can tell whether you're seminary educated or not, or have a graduate degree. They know right away. I've experienced it directly with some of this work that I've done since coming to HJI. So I'd like to encourage you to reach out. This is my contact information in the chat box. I'm available at all hours for any questions that you may have about our programs. And we want to encourage you to apply. And as a thank you for applying, the link to the applications in the chat box. As a thank you for joining us tonight, if you decide to apply, we'll be happy to waive the $30 application fee. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And Dr. Walsh, I'd like to turn it back to you just for maybe a couple words of closing, if that's okay.
Well, just thank you, Dean Boyd, and thank all of you for joining tonight. We're very excited about HJI. I hope you do decide to take a course. I thank Sancha Christian and Mark Lincoln. I feel thrilled to have had this opportunity to chat with you and to listen to you as you kind of shared your experience with prospective students. Thank you, Mika, for great introduction to your great work as Associate Dean of Student Life. And as Dean Boyd said, happy that one of our illustrious former presidents, emeritus president, Dr. Hendricks, is with us also on this call. So thank you, everyone. That's really all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. We look forward to further communication. Please reach out. God bless you wherever you are. I know some people are in the Far East tonight. Thank you for staying up so late and joining us. Thank you. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. And we'll be talking to you soon.